Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the Lorden Arts channel. I'm John Lorden, and today we have another case update for you guys. I know we've had a lot lately, and this is a good problem to have. I'm glad to see so many cases progressing so strongly. Every now and then we'll review a case on this channel where either a story being told or the logic of the events just it makes you feel uncomfortable. There's some unbelievable aspect to it. And to me, I'm always wondering, are the investigators feeling this same way about this story that they're hearing? In today's update, we're going to learn, yes, absolutely, they do feel the same way. And sometimes those investigators will step up and keep working that case until we have justice. Interestingly, the title of the video, the original video that this update is about, was Justice. Justice for Heidi Firkus. And this is a case that is happening here in my home state. Just to give you a real brief background on the case, if you want to watch the whole episode, I'll have a link to it in the description box down below. But we got to roll back the clock to April 25th, 2010. Heidi Firkus called 911 and said someone was trying to break into her St. Paul home. 38 seconds into the call, as Heidi was giving dispatch her address, a noise similar to a gunshot was heard. Heidi stopped speaking and the call went dead. And this is according to an arrest warrant. Before the gunshot, there is no significant background noise on the call, nor does Heidi say anything that would suggest that an intruder had actually entered the home. About a minute later, her husband, Nicholas Firkus, called 911 from his wife's phone and said someone had entered the home and shot Heidi in the back as she was trying to escape to the garage. That 911 call reportedly lasted 7 minutes and continues all the way up until police actually arriving on the scene. The officers found both the husband and wife shot, and Heidi, 25, was pronounced dead at the scene. Nicholas Firkus had a gunshot wound to his thigh. Now, the original episode I did, it's coming up on 2 years ago that I actually released that episode. But I remember there being all kinds of problems in the story. And really, this is already pointing out to it. They have tape of the shooting actually happening. And if you're analyzing that tape and you're not able to find anything else happening, now admittedly it's audio tape, but something like an intruder breaking into your home and you're not hearing of any of that, then a gun goes off and Heidi's dead. The story that they get from Nicholas is that he struggled with the person that came into the home. So if there's a struggle, shouldn't you be hearing some of that? That didn't happen, at least according to the explanation of the audio that we've heard about. If I recall correctly, I don't think the audio has been released, but like I mentioned, it's been a while since I've looked into this. Here we are, 11 years after this occurrence, and Fox 9 reports, husband charged. St. Paul police took Nicholas into custody on an arrest warrant on Wednesday at his home in Mounds View. He was booked into the Ramsey County Jail on suspicion of murder. The criminal complaint against him was unsealed on Thursday morning following his first court appearance. His bail was set at $1 million with conditions or $3 million without conditions. And from what I can see, the main aspect of those conditions is if he gives up his passport and agrees to not leave the state, they'll let him do the $1 million bail. If he can't agree to that, then they're setting it at $3 million. Obviously pretty serious charges and a pretty serious bail amount. Investigators did not find any unidentified DNA profiles on the gun and DNA swabs from the door to the house. No sound of a struggle was heard during the 911 calls, and no evidence from the scene suggested the incident occurred as Nicholas described. Another aspect to all this was the home wasn't being foreclosed on. If I remember right, it had already been sold like months prior, and they were being kicked out of it. I think it was a sheriff's sale, if I recall correctly. It seems like Nicholas might have not told his wife about any of that happening, and it was literally coming down to the wire where they were going to come in and force them out of the house. And then, this happens right before it. He did delay it once. He told them that there was an illness in his family or something like that. That kind of pushed the date back, but I don't know. No family or friends seem to know about them having to get out of the house. And it's terrible to say, but it seems like he didn't want to be honest with his wife and possibly pulled together this plan where her life is ended. I can't understand it. Heidi's family issued a statement on Wednesday following the news of Nicholas's arrest. We're extremely grateful for all those who have worked so hard and long to get the case to this point, and also for everyone who has prayed and stood beside us all these years. We're hopeful that these charges will finally bring out the truth and result in justice for Heidi. Even though we know we can't have her back, we believe Heidi would want us to have the truth. God is honored by truth. Heidi's life and memory is further honored by truth. So how did this happen? Well, over at TwinCities.com, 11 years later, a police sergeant came through. Sergeant Nicole Sipes worked on the 11-year-old homicide case, and that led the authorities to file charges. And here is a picture of her. From what I understand, she also did this in addition to her regular homicide investigation duties, kind of took this on as an extra project and kept working it. I think that's amazing. After Sipes became a homicide investigator in 2019, the sergeant who'd been investigating the Firkus case moved on to another assignment, and Sipes asked if she could take it over. She investigated it for 18 months, along with her regular caseload of new homicides. Once again, amazing. Until law enforcement and prosecutors reached a point that Heidi Firkus's family wasn't sure they'd ever see happen. And I wasn't sure either. You know, when you look at a case 8 years down the road and a case that has kind of simple conditions like that one, it's interesting because in a way, that's the problem with the case. The forensics aren't supporting the husband's story, which, yeah, you might say, well, the guy was wearing gloves. There's no fingerprints. There's all kinds of reasons why some forensics wouldn't be left behind, but a complete absence of logic when it comes down to those recordings. I'm curious how do you even work that in a courtroom? I'm really curious to see what happens when this gets to trial. So what did Sipes do when she got this case? She did what so many of these families hope and pray for. She put new eyes and a new perspective on it. She literally took it back to step one. Sipes started by reading each police report, looking through all the evidence and making lists of what she thought would be helpful to re-examine. She went back to interview people again. The FBI had assisted St. Paul at the start of the investigation. If I recall correctly, one of the things they were assisting on was analyzing the tape. At the suggestion of an FBI agent, Sipes partnered with a federal agency again early last year, saying they provided resources she otherwise wouldn't have had access to. Sounds like a really good partner to have on your side doing an investigation like this. Firkus's attorney, Joe Friedberg, however, called the case completely circumstantial during Firkus's first court appearance on Thursday. I do think there's certainly going to be an element of circumstantial evidence that comes into play here. Lack of the forensics, that's another thing that's kind of interesting. If you go down this train of thought of lack of forensics, well, then what is left behind? Yes, it's going to be the husband's DNA found on the gun. It's going to be, but there's an argument for all that. The husband lives there. It's, the weapon was owned by the family. It's really, I'm not sure. I feel like for them to have done this arrest, there's something else that they have either discovered or some professional analysis that came in that they didn't have before, and that's moving them to this point. And I don't think we're going to learn what that is until the court case. It's probably going to be a little while before we see any Case Cracked episode on this. So that's why I wanted to give you guys this update. The family, since their first meeting with Sipes in 2020, the Ericksons said she demonstrated time and again her complete commitment to doing everything possible to move the case forward, and they said they couldn't be more appreciative. Sergeant Sipes' energy, empathy, and tenacity is truly impressive, Linda and John Erickson said in a statement. She's clearly an experienced professional, yet personal in the way that she has listened and kept us informed. I love putting out a message of good work like this. I wish we had more families getting media attention and sharing their experiences with detectives like this. I do think they're out there. I don't think we always hear about it. We felt that every concern and question of ours is important to her. Sipes said she doesn't want Heidi Firkus to be forgotten as the case progresses against Nicholas. We honor her life by moving this case forward, Sipes said. At the end of the day, this is about Heidi and a young woman who lost her life and a family that's left to grieve for her. they've been extremely patient for 11 years while we have worked on this. It's amazing. Admittedly, it's a step in the process. Now it's going to be up to the prosecution to really pull the rest of this case together and make this work. But like I was saying, I'm hopeful they've got something in here that they didn't have before, and I'm hopeful that that's substantial enough to lead us to the truth and to, if this is the case, to prove that Nicholas is the one that actually did that, and then to serve justice. Curious to see what your thoughts are about this case. Let's talk about those in the comments down below. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for a bit today. I'll be back on Friday with an update episode for Searchlight, but it's a big update. The case of Chelsea Poorman. Her father, Mike, reached out, said, John, I want to talk to you and I need your help. I want to keep raising exposure. I'm going to give you all the information that I have. I'm going to give you access to a whole bunch of pictures that you guys haven't seen before of him, Chelsea, their life together. A very open and detailed interview with Mike is coming up this Friday on Searchlight. I hope you guys will check it out, and I'll see you there.